Yeah. Oh, I have to pat myself. All right. So let's take a moment to just have, just to rejoice that we have the karma to be here. And of course, saying that it isn't like karma directs us, in that sense, it's that we made the decision to show up, and we had the causes and conditions to give that one, it be one of our choices of what to do, so I mean, that's all good news. Most people do not have, they have not created the causes and conditions to meet the Buddha Dharma in this life. So that's good. And set a positive intention to use this time well. I really think, that we're really trying to develop our minds so that we just keep progressing to perfecting our good qualities of mind and abandoning our negative qualities of mind, developing new habits where needed, so that we can be truly of benefit to others. And that's a pretty good thing. And a side effect of that is that it benefits ourselves, our own level of happiness, and it reduces our suffering. So it's a win-win-win. So we will. Four measurables, page 34. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. In the seven limb prayer, reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. We dedicate our own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. And then page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. What have you been thinking about this week? I'm always optimistic. Purification, all right. Always a good time for that. Anybody been trying to use their understanding of karma in their thinking about events that happened this week?
Funny that you mentioned that. Because there are times now when something happens, it makes me think in terms of things I may have done in this life or previous lives. Obviously, I can't specifically pinpoint them,
Right?
but these discussions do make me think about it. Make me think about things more in those terms. I don't always have.
Yeah, it's not, but yeah, first we start with just even remembering. Oh, yeah, maybe I created the cause for this.
You know what, I noticed that certain things that little things that you shouldn't do,
Yeah,
that I do.
Yeah.
I've noticed that there's a pause there and I just can't do it anymore.
you know, it gives you, are you rejoicing at night when you go, before you go to sleep going, oh, I really did pause and I'm letting go of some things I habitually have done and I'm not doing it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, definitely do that. Rejoice in it. This is how we make progress. It's that's a great thing to realize that when we pause and we're kind of aware, it gives us that opportunity to go, no, not doing it, or yes, I'm going to do that. And some things are, really come easier, we just because we noticed, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to do that. I remember one time somebody, and I probably have mentioned it, somebody had dropped a glass bottle of oil or something in the parking lot of a grocery store. And it was where, you pull out, it was in, it was easy that it might hurt someone or, cause a flat tire, or just in general, it was messy and yucky. And I stood for like 5 minutes thinking about taking it off. Minutes to make the decision to go ahead and risk getting messy. It was yeah.
I can really relate to that because it was maybe a week or a week and a half ago. I found, correspondence from the Department of Motor Vehicles addressed to somebody, it was mail. And I thought, well, I picked it up off the sidewalk and I was gonna put it in the mail drop. And I was practically almost all the way to I-95. And I said, no, I gotta deliver this to him because he may have a real problem. You don't get letters like that, or whatever it was, without it being bad, And, so it was like 2 blocks east of here.
Yeah.
And it was like, I knocked on the door and old lady came out, they could tell she just only spoke Haitian, what do you call it, Creole. And he came, she called him because I said, it's so-and-so, I'm reading it. And she calls him and he comes, and I said, I found this and I wanted to give it to you. And you could see his face brighten up. And that thank you it made my day.
This is why happiness comes from cherishing others. We really feel good when we help someone. That just comes naturally to us. you know? It's like, no matter what happens in the next moment, you know, like if, I don't know, say you give a present to somebody and they have that really great smile, and then the next moment they say something stupid, like, oh, it's the wrong color. I don't know. But and so then you might go follow some stupid story in your head. But and we suffer because of it. We make ourselves suffer because then we create a story. But that first moment, it just arises naturally that we feel good when we help someone else, so we need to, and it's so important to rejoice about doing it and remembering so that doing it, because so that those moments where you're hesitating about doing it, it helps you do it anyway, just it gets you over the hump. So it's and then when you have to do it, we feel that way whether it was hard for us to do or not, so the little stuff, it has an effect on us, and the big stuff where we go out of our way to do something, for someone. So it's a good reminder. I feel like I have Medicine Buddha's rainbow things coming out of my head. Let's scoot over. Okay. So did y'all hear Anne's story? Okay.
I returned
So
a
I
book
think-
to the
Yep.
that I
Go ahead.
returned a book this week. And I know the other person really didn't care, but I saw it and I was like, I don't want someone taking something away from me in the future. And that's what I put the effort this week to return it.
I mean, sometimes all we have to think about is, would I like it if someone just kept it, indefinitely, it's and these aren't big life lessons, but doing it is, because we often blow it off. We just don't do it, and so then we're creating the cause, like you said, Susie, that someone's will do this to you, and then also we have that opportunity, because it isn't about the response of the other person when something like that, where you have something that belongs to someone else and you return it, it's fine if they, but that's not the point. The point is, that's what you'd appreciate if someone had something of yours. So it's how we, and these, we're trying to build habits. So that's where our mind goes in all these kinds of situations, when we just notice, oh, I never returned that, or, or, oh, this might be an important letter, so I think I'll drop it off. It's just, it isn't, they build a habit of course I'll do that,
And I'm finding that from our discussions, I'm pausing.
Mhm.
I really tried to put that into work at, like, not getting upset about people doing what I think are stupid little things, or like cutting in line, and get in the habit of thinking about it. And I realized there's times now where I don't have to think anymore.
Yeah.
I don't get upset. I don't
Right.
think a bad thing. I just smile. And I realized after the fact that I didn't think about it.
Yeah, it's just what happens in life.
Someone cut me off. I don't know why she thought she belonged in front of me in the line at Costco, but she bowled her way in there. And it's like, I didn't get upset. And for me, that was a big step.
Yeah.
I admit it.
Well, that's what self-cherishing does for us, is that we can get upset over teeny tiny things in the scheme of things, just because it's our turn.
And if I, besides not being upset and not saying anything, but really What would
Makes you
she thinks
suffer.
she was right no matter what I said.
Hmm.
So it's only gonna either escalate it, or I'm gonna sound like a jerk.
Yeah, and you'll be a jerk.
And I'm being a jerk. No, you're right.
I know.
I'm being the jerk and I'm wasting time, energy on it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
So they're making a difference.
Yeah, it makes a difference. And this is how you make habits. It really is just noticing. And the fact that we discuss things and you read things that say, gee, you know, the world's a more harmonious place if we act like this. You know, and it doesn't matter if the other people around us act that way or not. We feel better in those moments.
It's made me more aware that we talk about it, and we cause our own suffering, but in these situations, it becomes very apparent. I'm the one in control of whether I suffer because of what that person did.
Right. Yeah, it couldn't be more obvious when we look.
And these discussions have put that into clarity.
Yeah. I mean, these are the simple ways that the Buddhist teachings really change our day-to-day life. You know, we don't have to wait till we get enlightened to have an improvement, you know, so it's important. I think there's just almost nothing that's more powerful than recognizing that we have power over our choices and that it can make a difference in our, level of contentment, so to speak, and it's nice not to feel like a jerk, there's a bonus in it for us. And especially when we don't go the other, often we do these things by putting ourselves above the other person. Well, I'm not going to act like they just did, that, and that misses the point. We really do want to, I mean, it's fine to say, that those actions are the kind of actions I don't want to imitate. Like, but it's another thing to say, and I'm going to reciprocate with kindness just because I'm a better person. Practicing isn't so grand. So, so it's just because we don't know what's going on in other people's lives in any moment. We have no idea. So it's very important. So we can do with our pauses. The pauses give us that opportunity, especially if we also practice just sitting and thinking about things, really looking at behaviors we have of speech or thinking or actions that indicate that we are rubbing up against other people in some sort of way that's not beneficial to anybody, and so, sometimes we have to look at those and go, this is me, this isn't that, this is me, I'm doing this. It can also be a combination, obviously, but often sometimes it's like you look at it and go, oh, I'm always doing that. Like, I have a terrible tendency, and when I first was teaching here, and I'd come in, and my first thing out of my mouth to why is it like and of course I know why that habit was there, of wanting to make sure I said it and didn't forget about it, because it was something that I wanted to have changed or something that needed to be done or whatever. But that's it. I mean, I have no other justification other than the fact that I'm forgetful. So how important was it anyway? And then, it's why do you have to do things in a way that is critical, as opposed to just saying it would help me if this, blah, 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 whatever it is, or we need to do this so we can hand it out, whatever it is. but it was, you know, my way, I think, of diverting my anxiety about being here, you know, and it's just, you know, but what, and it's me. I mean, you know, you can, you know, I can see that happen in many relationships, you know, and it's a terrible. So, you know, trying to learn to break it, and I'm still can be pretty bad about it. But it's just, you know, it's just that awareness, like, really, if that's the first thing you want to say.
How did she respond to that?
Oh, how do you think?
She's used to it, people coming in, you know.
I know. So she was all very nice, and you know,
I know.
and, you know, it's like
I
really.
know, it doesn't even, you know, it just.
Oh, I'm
rolls
sure it
off your
did.
back.
I'm not sure of that,
Mhm.
you know, because a lot of people really do learn that, you know, okay, so you don't respond, you know, doesn't mean you're not hurt by it.
She didn't like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, of course not.
It's a story. It might not have,
But it was my
Sure.
story that I was vomiting on her,
yeah, right.
you know? So sometimes we have to recognize that, okay, first of all, there's some tension that's happening in some fashion. And then we have to go, and maybe it's me, you know, maybe it's what I'm doing, you know, that I need to work on, you know. And you do your best, because apologizing isn't enough,
No.
you know. Doesn't mean much if you keep doing it.
Our discussions on imputing on the other person have made me more aware.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we all do, but I mean, I can speak for myself.
Yeah, no.
And that's helped me a lot.
Well, that's what we need to see. This is about, you know, seeing reality as it is, you know, that we make up stories all the time. Almost all of our judgments are a story we've made up about someone to justify how we're feeling, or to somehow have a theory about what they're up to. You know, it's just, you know, we don't like gaps in knowledge. We fill them. Unfortunately, we fill them not with the truth. We fill with just a made up story. We just make it work.
Self-exaggerating things a lot.
Yeah, exaggeration's one of those.
And yeah, it can be very disturbing. Don't like it.
Yeah. And you have to catch yourselves. I mean, one way I work with that, because I do it too, and you know, is I go, I'm exaggerating, of course. As soon as it's out of my mouth, I'll go, I'm exaggerating first, just so it's out there and I can't disown it, you know, so that it's mine, you know, and it's just like, you know, and so it's like me being able, you know, like the story that in one of the Buddhist texts, you know, about, you know, the thief, the monk who was a thief in his earlier, before he was a monk. And so when he was visiting a patron or somebody, you know, anyway, somebody with better up than he said, there's a thief in the house. Yeah. So that, you know, to stop him from taking something that is not his, you know. So it's, but this is sometimes what we have to do, because our habits are strong, and just be able to, you know, I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh used to tell stories on the monks and nuns all the time because of that, because you have to own it. And also, it doesn't identify us. We cling. This is why we have so much guilt. We think that, you know, just because I do this and I do it repeatedly, that I am this. And whether, you know, it's like I am mean, I am selfish, I am, as opposed to, you know, the way I'm thinking is self-centered, you know, is this and that, because we can change those things. If we just say, I have a nature like that, and it's inherent, which is not true. So we can do this with all the different disturbing emotions. like with anger or impatience, like the drivers or whatever. But we can also do it with attachment, where, we can see our mind kind of starting to go towards craving or clinging, and interrupt that with thinking about the faults of attachment, how it's an exaggeration, how it's not true that I'll be happier, that I'm making up this story. And in the end, it's going to disappoint me and blah, blah, blah. And the cycle of suffering begins. And we have to think about how the habit of mind with things that are pretty inconsequential, the habit can become quite consequential, where, it's no big deal if you decide, but, eventually that mind that just gives in to, your desire for something that you like, can become theft. It can become, greed. It can become these things, and it's because you practiced it so much. And then you get into conditions that make it possible for you to take advantage, And so then the mind arises, and then it's a big deal that you've got this habit of meeting your craving whenever it arises. That's what addiction becomes. So, and we only call it addiction because it's about something that really harms us and others, kills us and destroys our relationships with others. So, we want to look at the dangers of a dissatisfied mind. What does that lead to? What kind of actions? And you think about the actions that, that in all world traditions say, this is not a good habit. Don't do this. So, and then things that maybe aren't obvious, like exaggeration. Why is that a problem? First of all, it's a lie.
It's a form of a lie.
It's a form of a lie. But also, what's, where can that lead? So, it's like, it's one of the ways we make big deals out of small things.
I've got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And it's so hard.
It is hard to not. It's just, well, for one thing, sometimes we have to look at what's in it for us. Like, I know that I exaggerate often for humor, and I like that.
That's okay, isn't it?
Still feeds the habit.
What do you mean by that, though? Exaggerate, what do you mean? I don't understand.
Well, like saying that, like in a teaching or something, I'll say, okay, this is only the 3 millionth time I've done, blah, 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 because I exaggerate to the extent that obviously that's not possible, unless you think of past lives. But, so,
There's no valid way to know.
right. But it's just the same thing, the fish story, it was this big, it's just like, oh, you should have seen this guy, you just barreled through in the traffic, you just do this, so, it may never strike you as this, but I had to face the fact that that's part of the reason why I keep the habit, is that sometimes it has an effect that I enjoy,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so that's not a big deal, except that if we also use that habit in ways that are destructive, where we exaggerate the harm that someone has done to us, or we exaggerate the tragedy of some situation, all that kind of stuff, now you're starting to harm others.
So it's a slippery slope
It's a slippery slope.
between exaggerating where it doesn't appear to be harmful to where you exaggerate and cannot cause harm to
Yeah.
yourself and others.
Yeah. And this is what we have to look at all our states of mind, which is why we want to interrupt the mind that gives into our cravings right away, because that leads to some really big problems. Maybe not this life, but we carry our tendencies with us. So then things like we all kind of know about the fact that annoyance and impatience and those things can lead to, eventually, and then in judgment. To me, I always, I have to remind myself of people, situations like Hitler, that's where judgment can lead to, and that's not something I ever want to have that mind. I don't want that mind, but that's where it starts. It doesn't come out of nowhere. These things are not magic. They're not just, it's not just a birth defect. It is a habit. So it's important to think about our habit, just to think about our different habits of mind and recognize what could cause trouble with this, so I can start to check it at this stage, at this level of habit, like teasing.
Yeah.
Teasing can, we all know that teasing can be fine, and so, but we also all know it can be extremely harmful. And we use it, the teasing is usually effective because there's an element of something you think is the truth in it. We pick on people with teasing. It has all sorts of levels. So it's just worth thinking about these habits. Gossiping, it's just, between the fact that it wastes time, but also you're making, you're usually we gossip because there's something of interest in it to us, like, oh, can you believe so-and-so did this, or so-and-so likes this, or whatever. I mean, it's just, we're using it for entertainment, but it's about people. It's not a good thing, So it's really about just noticing and then thinking about, okay, if I take this to the extreme, what could be the result? And would I want that result? No. So then you try to kind of handle on it. So it's a choice when you decide to tease, when you know that this is harmless between friends or something, and you're not picking on someone and blah, 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 blah. But it also means you start to notice if something you say there's an expression that comes over the other person. And then you might think, maybe it isn't so harmless after all.
Suicide is not as funny.
Suicide. Okay, we've gone from teasing to suicide. Can you say more about that?
Oh, no, I mean, somebody and they,
Well, it becomes
Yes,
bullying.
yes.
It becomes bullying.
it's like an epidemic these days, the suicide.
And
And
teenagers.
that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it starts, teasing is a part of the package. It's one thing when you tease people who belong, so they have a certain element of safety because they belong, but we do a lot of teasing of people who we've decided don't belong. And so they get more and more isolated. Well, it's not good for anybody, but it's particularly when it's being used as a weapon, and that's what happens.
And it turns into bullying.
Well, yeah. So that's just aren't we glad we're not teenagers now?
That's so grasping at your
yes.
ego.
I'm just glad there was no YouTube on it,
No kidding.
God.
Yeah.
Facebook or anything.
So understanding that, that the fact that teenagers today and children today and 20-year-olds, young people have so much more stuff thrown at them. And so being sensitive to that, if you're grandparents or if you're, teacher or you hang out with people, whatever. I mean, there might be occasions, you don't want to judge kids by, without knowing their story. You know, it's just, because we, you know, what do we do? You know, the problem with this country is young people don't vote, you know. You know, I'm just giving an example of, you know, of ways in which we, you know, well, that doesn't solve the problem of young people not voting, having that attitude by old people, you know. That just gives young people a reason to not vote.
Right?
So anyway,
A
Okay.
lot of that too isn't necessarily true. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
there's also the illusion that young people are lazy, but
yeah, that's not true. Well, the truth is, it's like the fact that we think the world is full of bad people. That is not true. It's not like that at all. They are by far the minority group. You know? And you can see it every time there's a crisis.
isn't it all in like degrees? I mean, we all have some.
We're all mixed bags,
Yeah.
but overall, we don't take advantage of every moment. We're not feeding our greed in every moment. We're not feeding our sense of superiority in every moment. You know, we're not doing that.
Oh, we're lucky.
Yes.
Fortunate that we live here because, let's say we had Putin as our president.
Right.
Well, more people that were bad, you know, his soldiers and so forth, you know.
I think even in those situations, you still have an abundance of good people.
Yeah, you do.
And they
But
can't-
they're in
But you
really
don't-
crummy conditions that encourage people to do bad things.
That's what I'm talking about.
I can be a good person in China. I'm not gonna be exposed to the Dharma.
Well, and
And so that's not a fortunate rebirth. You know,
No.
I can still be a good person.
yes,
I mean, relative.
yeah, that means you just don't have good conditions.
Right.
But I mean, it's what I'm talking about is things like we all have to be aware that we are in good conditions. So if we were born in the Ukraine at the moment or Gaza, you know, who knows what we do? Yeah, or Haiti or the Sudan, or, you know, I mean, who knows what we would do when faced with fear for our lives in every moment, fear of famine in every moment, just fear. Oh, God.
Seems like that's 90% of the world. Or am I exaggerating?
No, you're exaggerating.
But that doesn't make all those people bad people. They're just in bad conditions. They can still.
And their bad habits
And
are
their-
surfacing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. So when we judge others, I would never do that. We're being naive about causes and conditions. You know, so that's when it's really important to think about karma. That's where we just kind of, oh, I rejoice I'm not in those conditions to find out, you know, and may I practice a mind that doesn't head that direction. And when we hate enemies, that leads to that direction. You know, when we blame, you know, the other guys,
Like blaming politicians.
like blaming politicians, blaming the Russians, blaming the Israelis, blaming the Palestinians, you know, it's just, it is exactly that given the right conditions makes you want to join the army, you know, and this is what they train, how they train soldiers to kill people, is they make up the other group as being less than people. You know, you think about all the stories you hear about Vietnam and all the slurs that were used to describe the Vietnamese, you know, and the same thing in every war, you know, and it's because they're trying to get people, because people naturally don't want to go out and kill people. That's good news. The fact that we can be trained to do it is the bad news, you know, but it tells us something about ourselves, that we are not fixed. Well, causes and conditions matter.
One way or the other.
Yeah. And we can get in situations that where the conditions make it very difficult, if not impossible, for us to make good choices. you know? So it's this habit of judging or coming to the conclusions, you know, about people, not their actions, about the people themselves is not a great habit. Because that leads to the kind of hate we have with towards groups. And we do it with all kinds of things. And I really am empathetic, but we do it towards abusers. We do it towards, I don't know, think of a group, you know, that you feel like it's okay to hate them, you know, because they're really bad people. You know, that is where, that's how Hitler, a mind that like Hitler, that we imagine Hitler's mind to be like, that's where it starts. You know, because you can tell by the things that he said that he really believed that these people need to just be eliminated. That starts with that feeling. It's okay to hate these people because they're not really people that can be part of the picture. Or because they have this belief system. You know, so we want to be aware that our habit of judging and grouping people and judging people rather than actions, you know, is a slippery slope. We're once again back at the slippery slope.
So the better we understand karma, is that one of the steps to helping us be more compassionate?
Yes, because I think because we think about causes and conditions, but we have to put ourselves in the shoes of other people who are in causes and in conditions that are much different than ours. I mean, you know, sometimes I see women in burqas and I just can't imagine saying, oh yeah, I'll wear that. You know, how hot I'd be. You know, but it's not how it happens. You know, and so it's this, you know, when I think about all the things I just followed along with in my life, you know, I can't imagine, you know, of course, and we don't have choices all the time. We can refuse at our peril. You know, women are being killed for not acting right in these countries, you know, following the dictates of somebody else. So it's just, it's like, and we judge them, you know, I mean, I'm just saying as an example, you're probably not judging them. You probably never think about the fact that you never, you know, wear a burqa, but you know.
Well, it wasn't long ago, just a few hundred years, that women were basically property.
No, they weren't basically property. They were property. That's not an exaggeration. And they couldn't own property.
You're understating it, which is a form of exaggeration.
Yeah, that's the other form. That's the other direction of it. Yes. So, yeah, no, I mean, that's right. And it's like, so what does that say? You know, what that says is this dichotomy we have with genders, or whatever you call it these days, you know, we keep trading places because we don't get it. We keep, you know, insisting there's some inherent difference between men and women. And all that means is we keep trading places. We believe it. And so then when we're in whatever group we're in, then it's, you know, they need to get their act together.
It's really hard not judging politicians, you know, corrupt politicians.
How about just regular politicians?
How about them?
So we have to, first of all,
You know, there are some good politicians.
yes, there are.
But, you know, it's really difficult for me not to really react, I guess.
See, I think you want to look at that, you know, to like just watch the news or something, or read a story on something. And as you're reading it, think, okay, what am I feeling right now? What is arising for me? What's underneath, you know, what is the rage there, you know? And what are the assumptions I'm making? You know, it's like when you find it, like Thich Nhat Hanh made us write a love letter to George Bush when he decided to go to war with Iraq. to say. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese teacher, monk person. So I was living in Plum Village at the time.
in Plum Village in France.
So anyway, so he said, okay, and I want you to include, all the, respect for how difficult a job he has. A job that you never want in a billion years. Oh, there's another exaggeration. So it's this,
That was humorous.
yeah, you see, this is the thing.
But it's a slippery slope.
But it is. But this is, so you really think about that, that a president, a US president, isn't just one thing. They're also spouses, fathers, mothers, these are the things. I mean, it's just like, we're kidding ourselves if we think we know them through their political choices.
And they're not gods.
And they're not Buddhas.
So that they're just like us.
Yes. And
They're
they're
more influential.
they've got power, and some choose to use their power in ways that we, decide, no, that wasn't a good choice, but it's not about them as human beings.
So, like a George Bush, so his karma,
Which
put
one?
him with George W. Or the father, it doesn't matter.
A president,
Some,
pick a president.
right, a president who maybe you think nobody liked, or half the people do and don't. But
That's all.
his karma put him in that position of power.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So
He's a wheel turning king almost.
if he abuses that, he's sending himself back, who knows to what realm.
Yeah. But it means he had qualities in previous lives that gave him the resource of power.
But he also the qualities to misuse those powers.
Because he's not a Buddha. Because he has disturbing emotions.
Oh, like Dick Cheney.
Yeah, like Dick Cheney.
Halliburton.
Yep, all of them. We're not in their minds. And we don't know what we'd do if we had that much power. I mean, I think about some of the thoughts I've had in my life.
Might go to your
Yeah, it just might. And it'd be just like, ooh, if I had the power. You say, haven't you ever wanted to be a traffic cop for one day?
Yeah,
Just,
more than one day.
yeah, this is what happens. We use our power because we make judgments. So we use them against whole, and it is not a simple job. I mean, I can't even imagine the horrors of trying to just sit around and discuss what's happening in Gaza and Israel right now.
Yeah.
I just, it's like, what a mess. And also, and if you're a world leader, you've got to participate in some way. If you're part of the UN, if you're part of the NATO, all this stuff. I mean, it's just a nightmare. So praying that world leaders use wisdom and compassion in their decision making is a smart move, rather than praying that they drop dead.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just like, and it's hard. I find that very hard work. Other people have other issues that they have trouble with. It may not be politics, it may be something else.
That's very bad karma, wishing somebody
To die.
malice.
Yes, it's malice, wishing them harm. Even though you pretend you're not really wishing them harm. It's not like you're going to go shoot them or hope somebody shoots them. You just wish they drop dead. Like I kind of feel like about sharks. I just wish they didn't exist. Hey,
It won't bother us if we don't go in the ocean.
I know. But this is the point. This is that judgment, of like, I don't want them to exist because they do something that scares me. Total self-interest. So there are a lot of things in understanding how we're creating the cause to make hideous decisions in the future if we don't look at our mental habits. you know. Because we want to create the cause to have good conditions in our next life, have good resources in our next life, but we also want to have the habits of mind that won't abuse them. You know, that won't end up using them for destructive purposes. You know, and so all of those things, you know, our craving, our attachment, you know, our grasping, our aversion, all of those things dramatically affect how we use our resources and our power. Whether it's, you know, limited power like the head of family, you know, or big power like the head of a country or a business. You know. So I think it's really helpful to just think about, okay, if I take this mind out to the extreme, you know, when you catch yourself being judgmental or something, you know, just, you know, to kind of go, oh, okay, where does this lead? You know, and good news is we can practice this, you know, alone, because we judge all, you know, like I get in a car and you're judging, you know, all the people around you most likely, and, you know, or you watch something on TV and, you know, judgment just, you know, comes up. So it's not like you have to, you're not in a conversation necessarily with someone when you're practicing it.
You can do it all the time.
Judging,
I mean, practice.
we can practice all the time. And sometimes when we practice all the time, we realize, ooh, I'm doing a lot of judging. So this is the thing. So, you know, it's, and we won't, it's not like we'll just, and one thing that we don't want to do when we're doing this is judging ourselves. Going, oh, what a jerk I am. You know, because you're just practicing that mind of judging. You know, and instead you want to make that connection to others saying, oh, aren't we a mess? We're just sort of like, we're all suffering and we're all developing habits that we think are going to make things better that actually don't. You know. And this all revolves around, you know, our, you know, so if you bring in the wisdom aspect, you know, the emptiness of things, you know, the fact that our consciousness has always existed, will always exist. What happens to us in this life, this body and stuff, doesn't matter much. You know, because we do an awful lot to just protect, you know, of course we should watch our health, watch our safety, watch all these things, but we really can get enraged when we feel threatened. You know, and we want to, you know, we want to back up and kind of realize that this is not as big of a deal as I'm making it. Even if it kills me, it's not as big of a deal as I'm making it. And that's very hard to do. You know, but it's something to, you know, play around with in your thoughts. It's kind of like, oh, you know. So they just, you know, what good will being enraged do for me in the next life? You know. What y'all think at home? You look very, very just thrilled to be here. Don't worry, you've got company.
You gotta smile out of all of them.
Oh. So what's interesting to me is that the changes that we're trying to make in our mental processes, you know, it's a slow process, but then it can connect. You know, it's like then suddenly, you know, you're out there in the world and you're doing something, you kind of go, oh, don't want to do that. Or you realize, oh, I didn't get mad. You know, it just, you know, you change just by putting your awareness on it. It's Well, it feels like a miracle, but it's not magic. It is awareness and making choices, realizing, oh, I have the power to choose what I do in the next moment. What I choose to say, what I choose to think.
But
Yeah.
like you said earlier, in that moment that you realize I didn't act like a jerk, it's actually a joyful moment.
Right. Yeah, notice those things too. What brings you joy?
And that should be the impetus to try to recreate it as
That's
often
right.
as possible.
We all know about positive reinforcement. We want to make it work for us. Yeah. And we have to work at that. We have to remind ourselves to do that. I would say that's one of the biggest things that Westerners, have trouble doing. I mean, it may be true the whole world. I just don't know, but remembering to rejoice about the progress we make, and not make judgments about how big the progress is. It's not important because it snowballs. And then you realize you just don't have that happen anymore, that habit you were trying to change.
And it's karma that's never lost.
That's right. So that becomes a tendency. And these, so but we have to think about these things and kind of, with a critical eye of, critical not meaning bad, but like curious, and just kind of like, is that a smart thing? Is that a good thing to do? So. And thinking about what the teachings say about the heaviness of karma, that certain actions are heavier than other actions. And one of the things that makes an action heavier is frequency. And then, it makes sense in that, it's like the old, like, a bucket will fill with water, even just one drip at a time. It's not about quantity, it's about frequency. So that doesn't even have to take a long time if it's dripping rapidly. The water in the bucket.
All else being equal, the negative karma of a repeat offender is much greater than the negative karma of a one-time offender, if in fact everything else is the same.
Right.
The-
They
the
say that,
frequency
okay, so they say at the
more
time of
negative
death
karma-
that what seed ripens has to do with the frequency of actions, has to do with the heaviness of actions, all that stuff, and how recent it is and all those stuff. So practicing having a mind that's kind of okay. In other words, isn't sitting around feeling bad about oneself or others. It is kind of like, okay, so this is what's happening, and is just in general kind of peaceful. If you practice that a lot, then at the time of death, that's likely to be the mind you have, because it's what's most frequent. And that's a condition for, a positive seed to ripen. So, and then if you have the habit of always thinking about others, and at the time of death, that might be what you're thinking about. And if you have the habit of thinking about others without any expectation of reward, then you're not thinking about, like, I don't know, you're not twisting your concern for others and making it actually about you. So these, developing these habits. So that's why it's so helpful to have the mind that kind of goes, where am I in this picture? So that we can kind of go, okay, if I take myself out of the picture and make that a habit, taking oneself out of the picture. And then, we'll go along and we'll do better. And then, everything gets worse again for a while. Because either we're just stressed out, tired, sick, whatever. And then we have to learn how to practice even when the conditions are kind of rough going. But all of our tendencies will, will come into play. So the more we practice our healthy tendencies, they will be there to help us during the rough times. If we pause and choose. So that's one of the big habits. Yeah. So not just plow through. What you think?
My grandmother would always, she really wasn't into sports that much, but when these teams played, she always felt sorry for the losers.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
so
you have to, the way they look, bedraggled.
well, they're clearly suffering,
Of course.
I remember watching my brother. My brother was a high school basketball player, and he went to the state championships a couple of times, but he never won one, and that, you just felt so bad when, it's just like, so it's a wonderful, this is the example of the good qualities we have, The trouble is we also have attachment and aversion, so that we, don't care when it's not someone we know, or when it's, we don't care about the losers when our brother wins the championship, So we have to, we want to learn to balance that. And that's why it's really important to practice compassion for the bad guys. To get in the habit of recognizing they have causes and conditions that we can't imagine being in this life, and we don't know what's operating in there, what's having, what their tendencies are. And isn't it sad that they are developing more tendencies? They're going to end up be in these bad situations again, and they're going to make bad choices again because of these habits. And so it's really hard to get out of that once you've gone such a far direction, and we want to have compassion for them so that we have compassion for ourselves when we land there. So,
A lot harder to achieve the human rebirth.
of course, it's harder to achieve a human rebirth. It's considered as rare as the turtle coming up and putting his head through a golden yolk. That's got to be pretty rare. First of all, I don't know that anybody's thrown a golden yolk out in the ocean. Maybe ever. Maybe to shipwreck. No. But the point is, that's how rare it is. And yet we have 7 billion of us, So that's one reason to respect all human beings, is just the fact that all of them created the cause to have a human rebirth. And they had the mind at the time of death in the previous life to have a seed ripen for that. And then having compassion for how rare, even more rare it is to have a good human rebirth. Because
these power mongers in their next life,
they've set them
bound to be stripped of their power.
Yep.
But how do you know it'll happen in the next life?
You don't know.
You don't. It could be life.
It's just cause and effect. I don't know. It depends on what their mind is at the time of death. Because they carried, they created more than one seed to be born, with these good conditions. And so hopefully we have too. So, but it's all about our habit of mind, so it's if you're still clinging to your power or greed or whatever at the time of death, it's probably not going to look too good. So, and we don't want to have the mind that says, oh good, they'll get theirs.
Wow.
Because we all created the cause of terrible things to ripen. And so we don't want to, that kind of mind is the condition to have a bad seed ripen. So it's just like not a good plan.
I've noticed so many people in their dying stages, they kind of relinquish all the anger. Maybe they don't have the energy at that point. All the anger, and they kind of soften. You know, that's what I've run into, being with people that are dying.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to be in the presence of someone letting go.
Yeah.
Just, we just want to do more of it now. So that we're not holding so tight. Just like going, forgiving ourselves for our past actions, just letting that, no need to hold on to that, no need to hold grudges, no need to, wishing ill results on someone. Because in the end, we have to let go of it all. Because, it no longer matters at all whether someone screwed you over in business or somebody, whatever. I mean, whatever it is. So it's really important to recognize that this is one of the way, this is just yet another way we make ourselves suffer by holding on to things that are in fact the nature of suffering. Like feeling cheated or it's just, it's much better to just keep having compassion for people who've harmed us, to accept responsibility that we created the cause for it, and just, let it go. It's not easy to do, but it's a good habit to develop. So so you have to, when you have rage and when you have those moments of just, terrible guilt, you really want to look at what's a better choice you could make about this reaction you're having. Because we don't need guilt, we don't need rage, we don't need to hang on. We need to move on. Okay. How are y'all doing with thinking about things in advance? See, when I say that, things like that, it's usually, I haven't really done that. That's just me.
It's actually part of my thinking.
Good.
It needs to be more, so obviously.
You didn't have to tack that on. Not necessary. It really can help. Like if you have some sort of challenging relationships, it can really help to picture being with the person and recreating a scenario in your mind and thinking about other options of how to respond, the attitude you come in with, so that you're, that you don't have it already turned on your filter of this is going to go badly before you've even entered into it, so stuff like that. So you could practice, what might it look like? It doesn't mean it'll work out at all the way you imagine it. It's just that it gives you more tools in the moment when it's happening to go, oh yeah, I could do this instead, or think, and it takes, but you really do have to sit down and think about it, and kind of picture it, just, to give yourself the opportunity to let your creativity for other ways to look at it, other approaches, other perspectives, all that stuff. That takes time to bubble up, especially we've had some sort of relationship where this kind of thing just keeps going. That means you're in a rut, so you have to really allow yourself some more space to kind of think about other possibilities, because it's hard for you because you're stuck in a certain habit, you know? So it's really good to think about, and then you want to also include why you think it'd be nice to have it to go differently, even if it doesn't, that you would like to feel differently at the end of these interactions, where you're either not feeling terribly guilty or not feeling really angry or not feeling, that you look at the aspect of your suffering in that situation and how perhaps whatever you do could change that, regardless of what the other person does. Make sense?
Well, like if I'm gonna make a phone call to resolve a problem, I'm getting better at thinking about what's gonna happen. Don't assume how they're gonna react to what I think is a problem.
Yeah, that's
And it may be a problem, but that doesn't mean
it's their
it has to
problem.
go down the way I think it's gonna go down. And if I do that, just like with the lady in line, I find myself backing off and not being as confrontational.
Yeah.
And at the end of the conversation, I feel better.
Well, that's what
than
you
any
want to think
time when
about
I
when
get
you're
cranky at.
right. Then this is the kind of way you want to think about it. Is okay, what is the end result the way it is now? What can I do from the way I respond, like being open in the beginning to not assume it's going to go the same old way, because often we create the energy that just makes it go the same old way. It's just, so we just want to kind of acknowledge that, and then just look at what can I do differently about this? And it's all about not what you can do about them and, how they can change, but just what can you do to help yourself feel better, so it's just, and it really helps. It sounds so, elementary, but being able to just see the ways in which we're grasping on to it always goes this way, or they shouldn't treat me like this, whatever it is. And then, loosening the grip on that and being able to say, okay, what can I do so I don't walk away from this feeling whatever it is you normally feel, So it could be as simple as like, I'm going to end the conversation sooner. Oh, whatever. It's like, but if, it's like, if you have fear before you're about to do something, it's really helpful to have given yourself some time to think about, okay, how can I take care of that for myself? Yeah.
To just not escalate.
Yeah. And so we often have that room.
I don't understand what you're saying now.
I was just in a situation that could have escalated and,
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you walked away from it rather than
I
sticking around.
I got simple now.
We want to come to the comfort of the dump. I get it.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was so. I guess that was good. I mean, is it running away or is it?
When we have to know where we are.
It could have, yeah. It could have got very uncomfortable for everybody.
Yeah, and it can help if you make an agreement with someone that we won't, we are not, this conversation is not over, but I've got to step away, and then you have to come back to it with the person if they feel like they've just been dismissed, so it's, it just depends on the situation. It's not always relevant, but if it's an ongoing relationship, it's very relevant. So but it's about taking care of yourself, knowing, like, hey, okay, I'm not in any state of mind to be able to continue with that. That's not your fault. I know it's me. And I'm just need to table it for right now. So it's just, but then you need to be able to accept responsibility too, that you can't always do that, because then it is just running away.
And then it makes the other person madder.
Or makes them feel dismissed.
Exactly.
I mean, so there are many possibilities of how they feel, but you need to,
impute something onto what you do.
well, and they're imputing something to that on top of themselves too. We do it all layers, it's like, we can hurt people by not giving them the conversation they need, we can, or acting as if, I'm sorry, but I have better things to do with my time. Well, I'm just throwing that out as a possibility.
Yeah.
But, so we have to, take it back up. But this all involves being able to able to recognize, okay, I'm getting a little out, I'm becoming impatient, or I'm becoming irritated, or I'm becoming needy, or whatever it is, and you're having aversion arise. So I'm not, reliable when I'm like that. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about what Jack said, and, fear was coming up, whatever case may be. And he came, for refuge
Right.
here in the Dharma Spring Assembly.
Yeah.
And
I'm much better off now.
that's kind of like he paused.
Absolutely.
That's the beautiful, that's so beautiful. I mean, thinking it through, like I
Yeah.
came up with that.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This is why reading a lot of Dharma books, or some, a lot doesn't have any meaning, but reading the Dharma, showing up in the community of Dharma helps us make these changes, and it's because it is a place of refuge. It's where people don't look at you like, are you insane? You think too much about all this stuff, whatever. But and generally we're not in relationships with people who think the same way, who are approaching things the same way. So it's, we need support, not in order to be able to judge the other people in our lives, but just so that we need the support for the changes we want to make, we're choosing to make, So it's helpful to, and if, we have to be creative, if nothing is happening, you get on YouTube and watch a Dharma talk, instead of, a Hallmark mystery movie or something.
Those aren't fun. The Hallmark.
It just, three people
corny,
die,
huh?
but they're terribly corny. But the detective and the other person, usually have a romance going. So it's, it's got a happy ending for the people who live.
It's so wholesome. I like that part of,
Yeah, I just don't,
You can
it's
do
a funny
comedy.
combination with murder mysteries, however. Because I also have just regular Hallmark, but of course I would watch those to, save my life. But it's, but murder mysteries, I'll watch any kind, even bad ones, because I'm, shallow. But it's just, so we want to nourish these tendencies towards wanting to become more aware and to make better choices, and so sometimes that's like just reading a story that kind of is supporting that behavior, so it's really helpful to do those things. And then we need to be able to recognize, oh, I always feel better when I do this. So you do some more of that, and I always don't feel so much better to do that, and it's just sort of, it's another way to make better choices. Anyway. Okay. So we're going to make the choice of, rejoicing that we, once again, showed up, trying to think about things from a different point of view, trying to encourage ourselves to keep wanting to make these changes in the way we think and the way we speak and the way we act, and that we're relying on teaching. We're not just trying to wing it. We're trying to use some logic and reasoning and stuff from the, people wiser than us to, try to have good ideas. So that's a good thing. So we're using our time wisely. We can feel good about that and pat ourselves in the back. Yay. So that's right. Go for it. And now we want to just share the positive results of such actions, to be of benefit to others. So let me find the appropriate pages. So like on page 235 of the prayer book, share. And even if like, if you read these words sometimes and you kind of go, yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm not trying to become a Buddha, or, and I haven't gotten to the point where I really care about all living beings and all that stuff. It's really just about a practice. It's about, the more we say words like this, the more we'll start to think this way. And if you think it's a good idea to think this way, then why not practice it, kind of thing. So really rejoice in our efforts, and you can rejoice in all the efforts around the world that people are doing to benefit others, to, all the manifestations of people's Buddha nature, and it's not just human beings, animals do it, it's, just rejoice about that, and that it happens every single day, and it will happen tomorrow. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may we quickly attain the state of Guru Buddhas and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious ones thus gone of the 3 times, so I might perform good works. I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of perfect, pure Losang Drapa to shine forever. Page 244. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezi, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. I was thinking today, it's so funny that, like His Holiness is like 86, 88, I don't know, and, we're all worried about Biden's age and, Trump's age, or all these old people on the courts or whatever, and I'm just thinking like, oh no, I want His Holiness to keep leading. You think? But it's just kind of funny that age has nothing to do with it. So on page, I think it's what page is it? 234.
Prayer for the
Long life.
return.
Yes.
234.
Yes, I see. I've said the long life. Yeah. See, we're all doing it.
I did that too.
Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam and glory for fortunate disciples. So, thank you guys very much. We continue on Sundays, and like I continue on Sundays till like April 20th or something, 21st, something like that. Venerable Amy shows up around the 23rd. And I'll be teaching both Thursdays and Sundays until then. I don't know what else is happening. Check your calendar. Oh, I do know on April 13th, which is a Saturday, in the morning, we're going to be doing prayers for the anniversary of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's, showing the aspect of passing away. So I think it's like 9:30 to noon. So, and we'll probably be online too. So, okay. So whatever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Take care. Have a wonderful Easter.